This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
I don't know how you feel about today, but I believe today is a good day. There's a few things that have happened. One, the White House, Joe Biden as president, finally followed through on part of a campaign promise to forgive student loan debt. Now, as reasonable human beings who have empathy and a decent attitude toward one another, I believe it's incumbent upon us to love our fellow citizens, and if they get a benefit that we maybe didn't get because we had already paid off our student loans or didn't have student loans, we should celebrate that. We should be happy for them, working toward progress and the betterment of all of our lives, even if their particular situation doesn't model ours, doesn't mirror ours. And the Republican Twitter sphere is losing its collective minds in conservative circles because they are talking about fairness now. The party that stripped away women's healthcare autonomy by overturning Roe v. Wade and celebrating it is now whining about fairness. So the good news is that Joe Biden is going to forgive a certain number of dollars in student loan debt. The second part that's good news is that this White House is finally showing a little backbone, going on the offensive to battle the rhetoric of these idiots on the right, using the White House Twitter account in a fantastic way. And we're going to cover it. We're going to throw this up on screen. They start with Marjorie Taylor Greene, because of course there's this cadre of conservatives who are talking about how unfair it is that student loans are being just forgiven, but ignoring the fact that dozens of congresspeople, I don't know the exact number, but it seems like a tremendous number, they got PPP loans during COVID totally forgiven, and not 10 or 20,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here is the White House going on the offensive with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm going to play what she says about the fairness of it all.
For our government just to say, okay, well, your debt is completely forgiven. Obviously, they have an agenda for that. They need votes in November.
An agenda.
So the timing is a pure coincidence there as well. But it's completely unfair. And taxpayers all over the country, taxpayers that never took out a student loan, taxpayers that pay their bills and maybe even never went to college or just hardworking people, they shouldn't have to pay off the great big student loan debt for some college student that piled up massive debt going to some Ivy League school. That's not fair.
That's not fair, everyone. To which the White House, as you can see, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $183,504 in PPP loans forgiven. Was that fair, Margie? She's not the only one, though. Here, asking plumbers and carpenters to pay off the loans of Wall Street advisors and lawyers isn't just unfair, it's also bad policy. Congressman Mike Kelly had $987,237 in PPP loans forgiven. A loan forgiveness program. There was one with another clip of a congressman. We'll just read this one. Everyone knows that $60 billion in European land war, it's always the $3 billion that kicks in the door. Congressman Matt Gaetz had $482,321 in PPP loans forgiven. This is reprehensible hypocrisy on the part of these assholes. They'll take the money, they'll have their loans forgiven, but when it comes time for someone else to get a benefit from we the people, oh, it's all just too much. It's unfair. Listen to this goober on Fox News.
A lot of families in our region, they've been talking about forgiveness of loans for the last 4 or 5 months, are very, very upset. Many of them work 2 jobs to be able to put their kids through college, and then to think that a lot of these loans are going to be forgiven is wrong, and they're very outraged about it.
And these folks paid up. They took care of their obligation.
Yeah, they took care of their obligation with their children. They felt like they did the right thing. Many of them working an extra job to be able to do that. And now they just feel outraged about where this is going. And this is not something the last couple of weeks. This has been going on for the last year, 6 months. They've been talking about it. And I just knew when we got in the business, it would be a disaster. We should have no business in terms of the federal government being in the business of lending students. There's a lot of people out privately that would do that.
Sure. I mean, it's very regressive. It's the non-rich, middle-class people who are paying the freight one way or another, including taxes, for those upper-crust people, get graduate degrees in religion or poetry or stuff like that.
Upper-crust people are taking out student loans. The richest of the rich of America, this dingbat thinks are taking out student loans. Look, I got some friends who are wealthy. I have some friends who grew up pretty rich. They don't have student loans. I have student loans. My wife has student loans. We grew up poor. That's who takes advantage of student loan programs. Let's let this other 16 seconds play out with this dipshit.
There's a lot of kids that are working a job or two to try to pay it as they go. I know I was a blue-collar kid, and I first in my family to go to college, and I worked 2 jobs through college to be able to pay my tuition as I went along. So it's not about me, but just in general, people are very outraged, I think is the best word. A lot of families in our...
Outraged. Well, let's listen. Vern Buchanan, his tweet, as a blue-collar kid who worked his way through college, I know firsthand the sacrifices people make to receive an education. Biden's reckless, unilateral student loan giveaway is unfair. There's that word again, unfair to the 87% of Americans without student loan debt and those who played by the rules. Played by the rules, Vern Buchanan says. The White House tweets in response, Congressman Vern Buchanan had over $2.3 million in PPP loans forgiven. Is that unfair, Vern? Is that unfair, brother? That you get $2.3 million in free money from the federal government, yet whine and cry your tears because poor people got $20,000 at the max forgiven of their loans. $20,000 if you got a Pell Grant, if you qualified for a Pell Grant. All of this hand-wringing and pearl-clutching is disgusting. Here's another one. We do not need farmers and ranchers, small business owners and teachers in Oklahoma paying the debts of Ivy League lawyers and doctors across the U.S. This places undue burden on those already suffering due to the weight of Biden's failed economic policy. And this Congressman Mullen had over $1.4 million in PPP loans forgiven. Forgiven. The hypocrisy just hangs in the air. It's palpable. To recap, in the last 2 weeks, the party of the people has supercharged the IRS to go after working class Americans, raise their taxes, and force them to pay for other people's college degrees. Says the congressman, with over $1 million in PPP loans having been forgiven. These are sick freaks. And finally, the White House, and there's many more. I mean, look at this. Matt Gaetz, Mike Kelly, and then the wonderful Asher Rangappa. Leaving a little gift there. Look, this is where we are in American politics today. And finally, the White House is stepping up and putting on a little pressure. They're not outing private citizens here who are whining about their views on the policy who also got PPP loans. People like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder. They're not outing them. They're outing policymakers. People who ostensibly voted for the Paycheck Protection Act, those particular loans, They voted for it, took advantage of it, and then are whining about people getting 20 or even 10,000, most will be. It's gross. Sick, hypocritical freaks. Finally, Joe Biden stepping up to the plate with a little bit of gusto. I like what I see. What do you like? Are you appreciative of this? Please, you can leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love to hear from you. Follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Dollemore on all of those platforms. And if I do something that you appreciate, if I bring value to your day or to your week, please consider supporting my work, helping take part in the mission of this program, which is one, outing assholes on a day-to-day basis. And really doing our best to try to help save democracy. I love you guys. I appreciate you very much. You can become a channel member. You can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. There's all kinds of ways to help support what I do here. Have a good weekend. Be genuine. Take care of one another.